Gretel lived in a hut in the woods with their father. Their father was a poor woodcutter. His wife, their mother, had died when the two children were very young. Their father thought he would not be lonely anymore when he finally remarried. But the new stepmother made life very hard for Hansel and Gretel. The children were not allowed to eat until the stepmother had taken everything she wanted off the plates. Most of the time, there were only crusts of bread left, and all day long were hard chores for them to do.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Fun Fact Podcast. Today we will be talking about one of the most classic fairy tales of all time, Hansel and Gretel.
But before we get started, did you know that the original story of Hansel and Gretel was actually much darker than the version we know today? In the original story, the stepmother was actually the children's real mother, and she was the one who abandoned them in the forest.
The original title of the story of Hansel and Gretel was Roland and Mayberg, and it had different plot. In the original version, Hansel was turned into a deer by a witch, and Gretel was saved by a prince. The story was later changed to the one we know today by the Grimm brothers, who collected and published German folktales in the 19th century. But don't worry, we're not going to be talking about that version of the story today because it's scary. So for now, we are going to be talking about the fun facts after our short break.
Once upon a Hansel friendship story. Hansel sandwich, snack happily ever after.
Alright, we are back. Like as Danica mentioned earlier, we will be talking about fun facts, and I am so excited to share some facts about the story. Now, here are a few fun facts about Hansel and Gretel that some may or may not know. The story of Hansel and Gretel is actually inspired by a real event. During the Great Famine of 2015 to 2017 in Europe, many families were forced to abandon their children in the forest because they couldn't afford to feed them. I also heard that the gingerbread house was actually a candy house in the original story. The Grimm brothers changed it to a gingerbread house in the second edition. And another fact, the witch in the story is actually a cannibal. But she plans to eat Hansel after she fattened him up. But Gretel outsmarts the witch and pushes her into her own oven, killing her. Interesting, right?
I agree. The story of Hansel and Gretel has been adapted into many different movies, TV shows, and operas. One of the most famous adaptations is the opera Hansel and Gretel by Engelbert Humperdinck. Oh, before I forget, I just want to share this fact that I know. Actually, these two siblings embarked on the perilous journey in the forest, facing challenges and dangers along the way. They are known for their ingenuity and teamwork as they navigate through the witch traps and eventually outwit her to escape.
Also, here's the thing. In the original story, Hansel and Gretel's stepmother was actually their real mother. This was later changed to a jealous stepmother by the Grimm brothers, as it was considered too harsh for a mother to abandon her own children.
I also heard about the breadcrumbs trail. It was said that in the original story, Hansel and Gretel discovered pebbles to mark their path through the forest, not breadcrumbs. This change was made by the Grimm brothers, possibly to make the story more appealing to children.
Well, that's cool. I also want to add this here since we are about to end. And I want you guys, as well as our viewers, our listeners, to know and maybe a little summary for today's podcast. In an unforgettable scenario from Hansel and Gretel, the siblings lost in the forest come across a magical gingerbread house that entices them with its delicious aroma and enchanting appearance. Little do they know the house belongs to a wicked witch who captures Hansel, intending to grab him. However, Gretel's bravery and quick thinking ultimately lead to their escape and the defeat of the witch, highlighting their determination and resourcefulness in the face of danger.
That is so silly of you, Les. Some of those I already mentioned earlier. Were you not paying attention? Kidding! Anyway, I just hope our listeners had some learning today. Do you guys have an idea about the relevance of Hansel and Gretel's today's time? Well, here's the thing. The story of Hansel and Gretel is a powerful reminder of the human capacity for survival in the face of adversity. The siblings' resourcefulness, courage, and ability to overcome challenges make them relatable and inspiring figures for contemporary audiences.
Oh, I have something to add. The bond between Hansel and Gretel is central to the story, highlighting the importance of family and the strength that comes from unity. In a world that often emphasizes individualism, the story's emphasis on sibling cooperation and support resonates with audiences of all ages.
That's so true. Also, the witch, deception, and attempt to exploit Hansel and Gretel serve as a cautionary tale about the danger of manipulation and exploitation. The story teaches children to be wary of strangers and to trust their instincts, reminding them that not everyone has good intentions.
I totally agree with all those statements. Since we are about to end this podcast, I will be sharing with you guys the moral lesson of the story. The moral lesson of Hansel and Gretel include the importance of resourcefulness and cleverness in overcoming obstacles, the value of sibling bonds and mutual support, and the cautionary message about the dangers of succumbing to temptation and the consequences that follow. And before we wrap up this podcast, we just want to thank everyone for staying with us until the end of this podcast.
I hope you enjoyed these fun facts about Hansel and Gretel. If you want to learn more about the story, I recommend checking out the original version by the Grimm brothers. It's a bit darker than the versions we know today, but it's also fascinating and timeless tale.
And that concludes our podcast for today. Thanks for listening to the Fan Fact Podcast. Be sure to subscribe for more fun facts about your favorite fairy tales and other stories. Bye!